Hello, everyone. It's Michael Jacob with Unleashing Intuition Secrets. Illuminati expert Leo Islamist with us once again, best-selling author. It seems like every time you come on my show, your books go bestseller again. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. This book it's going very well. I guess we are living now at the center of this whole Epstein drama, and so there is a lot of controversy surrounding it. And we have a deadline which is approaching the 19th of December. So let's see if it's a nothing burger, or we're going to have a lot of stuff which is redacted or what. Let's see. It's definitely interesting to see. By the way, the few photos which have been published show a Steve Bannon highly compromised, but also these technocrats and people like Bill Gates, of course. We have also Richard Branson, many others. But I mean, aside from the few photos that were shown, which a lot of people are commenting on, saying this and that already about it, but we still don't have really the context for. I would say that the reality of these files will be seen in the way they are redacted. How many black marks we're gonna see on them, So let's hope not too many.
Yeah, no kidding. But I think we're going to see some fireworks, like you said. It's getting to that point, and they'll make them happen because they've been trying to force things that really aren't there. So it remains to be seen, what's going to come out of this.
I think that you see the reality of politics has been compromised, unfortunately, and we are seeing instead gradually the rise of the technocrats and the AI taking over the whole show, and that is going to be really what we're going to have in the future, as well as a war which is approaching. I mean, we are seeing Europe really on the verge of war, and that is sad for me. At least I come from Europe. Of course, I still have a lot of relatives there and friends, but the reality is that they don't have any intention to have peace in Europe. They seem to have this whole political class which is built on failures, on people who are failures, because nobody likes Macron, nobody likes Merz, nobody likes even if we go in the UK, Starmer, nobody likes anybody in Europe. So it's obvious that maybe they need a war to have some kind of unity and some kind of relevance, because that's what's happening with Europe in a world that sees the major powers like America and China really playing their own game, the Sino-Russian alliance against America. That is really where the power is, and that's why I'm a little bit upset with Venezuela and what is happening in Venezuela, because I know that if it gets to become a war, it's going to be much worse than we saw in Vietnam or in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I think we're definitely heading that direction. When I was at SEAL Team 6, we were already planning, and this was 35 years ago, we were already starting to plan Venezuela. And so it's coming to a head. Now, I don't think it's just going to be Venezuela. I think it'll be Colombia. I think it will be Mexico, probably Brazil, because that's where all the drug trafficking is coming from. And it's going to engulf a lot of those countries.
Yeah, and we know that, of course, this is going to make happy the military-industrial complex in this never-ending necessity for continuous warfare. Yeah. But the fact is that we are also a bankrupt country which doesn't need another war. So it's pretty upsetting. However, we have outlined a few of today's subjects. We have, of course, the Mamdani Trans Rabbi. Everybody's talking about, that I've been discussing this Trans Rabbi for a long time, because it is really part of what I described in this book, a part of this reformulating Judaism in the light of more progressive doctrines. Now, a lot of people think that we can find those progressive doctrines only on so-called Reform Judaism, which, by the way, covers nearly 80% of the synagogues in this country. But this guy here is actually the product of Reconstructionist Judaism. Now, there are so many of these different forms of Judaism that gets confusing. However, the guy has an Orthodox background. He was very much a traditional Orthodox Hasidic rabbi until he understood he no longer wanted to be married, and he suddenly wanted to be a woman, and then he went into this form of Judaism which embraces now even transsexual rabbis or women rabbis, which are of course also embraced by Reform Judaism. All forms of religion seem to be really going astray in one way or another. The Pope has the transsexual guested there for a special lunch at the Vatican, and then you have the transsexual nominated by Mamdani as one of the I mean, it's like the world is going crazy, and it seems like everybody
it's obviously satanic. It's like God.
Let's not forget that we had a former mayor, Rudy Giuliani, who liked to dress up as a woman.
Really? I didn't even know that. Wow.
Well, actually, if we go on YouTube, we can find a video of him dressed up as a woman with Donald J. Trump.
Whoa. Was Donald J. Trump dressed up as a woman?
No, thank God he didn't have that.
All right. He didn't cross that line yet. He wasn't, he didn't go into that realm.
No. There's a lot of criticism that we can move against Trump at the moment, but we can never say that he wasn't really always somebody who liked fine women. And so, I mean, even the photos that are coming out of the Jeffrey Epstein estate or archives are indicating that. Thanks God.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people that told me Rudy Giuliani is a very bad alcoholic, really, really bad.
Well, I mean, we always had this very, I mean, J. Edgar Hoover. I mean, there is some very particular figures in America that seem to have had some kind of, J. Edgar Hoover liked to dress up in drag.
That's right. Yep. And had a male partner. So
yes. Now, we don't really still know the whole story about Bubba, but we leave that aside. In any case, Boba, or whatever they want to call it. Now, let's move further from these trans highlights, which seem to have been compromised at the beginning of our show. But because Mamdani is about Islamo-communism, Islamo-wokeism. It's a reality that, as you know, exists only in the West, because if a guy like Mamdani was proposing these things in the Middle East, he would be beheaded together with everybody else in his council. Now,
absolutely,
it's quite incredible, that people don't understand that there is an incoherence here that unites the left and Islam in spreading their tentacles here in this country. However, the thing is that Islam is spreading their tentacles even with the Republican Party. Let's not forget that Trump just not so long ago put a red carpet for a president of Syria who is a former terrorist, and now we have ISIS suddenly on the attack, killing American soldiers in Syria. Guys, I mean, come on. I just indicate at this point, volume 10 of my Confessions, which will explain you that this is a charade, and that if they are taking out of the closet, if you want to then still stay with this kind of language, the whole ISIS thing, ISIS was created by Barack Hussein Obama. We had people like McCain, Clinton. I mean, why suddenly we have this ISIS necessity? Is it because we need to have some kind of strategy of attention on that subject rather than another subject? Is it like they can fade the interest from one thing to the other? Like, okay, we have just taken a tank full of oil from Venezuela, but then we suddenly had the revelation this week made by an American congressman that maybe Venezuela has Russian nukes. That will make Trump jump on his seat and say, okay, we can't move war against a country that has Russian nukes. So at that point, we have to fade the interest on one thing and rise it on another. It's like interest. It's quite interesting to see how the big brother works on top of us, on the strategy of attention and tension. I would say that in Europe, they are now pushing towards a strategy of constant tension with what is happening with Russia, with what is happening with NATO, with what is happening with having to refinance NATO and refinance the politics of the military industrial complex in Europe. Because up until now, as you know, before Trump, it was all on us Americans to support the defense of Europe. Suddenly things have changed. But you can't convince 500 million individuals with some kind of radical brainwashing on a massive scale. We need those weapons. I mean, Europe is is also a place on the verge of bankruptcy. With they don't have after they abandoned the fossil fuels from Russia, Germany is really having a lot of problems. Germany is the heart, economically, industrially, of Europe. And it's sinking more and more towards a stage which we have not seen since 1939. Now we know exactly what happened in 1939. It was the invasion of Poland and the beginning of the Second World War. So I hope that we're not, pushing towards that direction. Now, it's also true that Germany, continuing this idea they can eventually move military to defend Europe with others win. The reality is that Germany is fueled with LGBTQ people that don't have any idea. I mean, if we go back in time, the creation of the Wehrmacht, of the forces that made the Second World War initially go in favor of Germany was because you had a formation of years of Hitlerjugend, of preparation of these Germans who thought they were the superior race. Now, if you go to Germany, you find a bunch of people who are confused about their own sexuality, let alone the race. And I don't think they will make a great army in defense towards instead the Russians, who are very compact and very ideally very united. You know how important it is in the military to have a unified object and mission.
Yep.
Europe doesn't have that unification. The ideologies are varied, but also, like I said, today Germany is not the Germany of the 1930s. It's not the Germany of the 1920s. It's a Germany that is having a lot of problems. It's a Germany that was forced into welcoming 1 million Syrians because of Angela Merkel, and that cost her a political position, but also invaded Germany with Islamic people that don't integrate most times. And so it creates more and more problems, aside from, of course, collapsing the very system Germany was built upon.
Well, really all of Europe has taken in the Islamic and, London and all these. Now, Trump is basically going against them. Remember when Trump came in the first time, I think less than a year after he came in, he killed al-Baghdadi, who is the leader of ISIS in Iraq. And that was huge. So now it looks like we're back at it again. But
the thing is, Trump said to us that ISIS was finished, and now suddenly ISIS is actually manifesting again, but is manifesting in Syria, where you have positioned yourself a president who knows those people from his own personal background, and Al-Assad instead is playing video games in Russia. That's what he's doing most of the time. They said that the guy. So I mean,
you have some good intel.
No, but it's quite incredible. Paul al-Assad is at times he's in Moscow, at times he goes out some, but he's really not doing anything. Now, 2 U.S. soldiers and a civilians killed, several more wounded in central Syria in this ambush. It seems really weird what it stands for, this whole thing. Then I want to tell one thing. I'm not happy about laying the red carpet for Mamdani in the White House. I thought that was disgraceful. I thought that Trump will pay politically the price for doing that. And in fact, now who is the main opposer to the ICE policies of Donald J. Trump? And who is showing actually a video on how and promoting even an app again. And Mamdani suggests the New York police may arrest ICE agents enforcing federal law. Trump, you let that guy in the White House, and you had good words for that guy. I would have arrested him on the spot.
I know, right? I think it's maybe a setup. He's letting him, like a fish. He's letting him run. He's going to like yank the line, and so we'll see. But I think a lot of these places are going to have to put up with federal troops coming in pretty soon, and that's not going to be their choice anymore.
Yeah, but then federal troops that seem in a way to help Palantir and the rise of the AI dictatorship and cyber Satan state. So it's like just recently we had Trump signing an executive order. Now we don't know if this executive order will then not be contested. Probably the majority of states will appeal it. But however, that executive order wants to control federally the AI. Now, we know that the Republicans have never pushed for anything that wasn't, liberation from federal control. Now, suddenly, we have Trump promoting federal control. So, a little bit of a disappointment there, because we know that Peter Thiel is probably way too close to Trump and the whole dark enlightenment lobby, which included, by the way, Steve Bannon, who seems to be, at the moment, I don't have any good words for Steve Bannon, because I think that it's pretty clear that this guy has betrayed everybody. And the guy was there trying to help Jeffrey Epstein clean up his image. No, that is not something that I can agree on in any way, shape, or form. Now, another topic of today is, of course, the Aussie satanic child sex ring, which has been discussed for a brief time by the media, but now seems to be gone in oblivion. Once again, nobody seems to want to discuss what happened in Australia. There was basically 4 men were charged in Australia. And 4 Australians that were involved with an international satanic child sex abuse material ring. Now, like David Icke said the other day in an interview, and I agree with him, Jeffrey Epstein is not the only guy who ever did a human trafficking, pedophilia. No. Actually, he was relevant because he was connected, of course, with Israel. He was connected with the Sabbath and Frank. He was connected also with a lot of power.
Yep. And Hugh Hefner did the same thing. Yep. There's this thing going on for a long time.
But there is other rings. There is a variety of powerful people involved with pedophilia. And it's very important that we understand. Now, this whole thing that saw the New South Wales State Police identifying and arresting the Sydney-based network, it's laudable, but why, they have arrested these people. They had a bunch of material. I have also found possible connection with the Order of the Nine Angles, by the way, which is an order which promotes this kind of, it's very much in bed with the pedophilia and with also promoting satanic rituals around pedophilia. Because this is not about what we have seen with this Aussie satanic child sex ring, is that it's not simply a sex ring, it's also satanic, use of satanic symbolism, use of satanic rituals. and so that is definitely scary.
And part of all of these elite circles, they all do it,
and they all do it. So, like we can say that probably the 26-year-old that was arrested, who, by the way, was called Landon Germanotta Mills. I think Germanotta is also the surname of Lady Gaga. But this guy is probably just an scapegoat for some more powerful people that will never get arrested in a million years.
Absolutely.
So it's sad to see that at the end, these powerful people behind them will probably get away with it. And there is not been any more further discussion. Also, another thing I noticed when it comes down to this news coming from Australia, it was not touched at all by the European media. People in Europe told me, Leo, we can find this news anywhere. It's like they didn't want to touch it. It was like, so why is that?
I haven't seen it anywhere until I saw it on your website in that article. That's wow.
Yeah, but my article provides also video from a news, from Australian news. It provides the possibility of going into deeper research. And as you can see, something was said in the Australian media, but then it kind of like, it ended up there. It was like there's no further discussions on this whole thing. Now, going back,
why is it so much of a connection to? Because I've had many guests that have been part of the system, and they all talk about Masonic influence. What?
Yes. Well, I mean, I remember still to this day, I was taking this car ride. I had been at a very important Masonic meeting back in the days, almost 20 years ago. I was in this lodge in Livorno, I think it was Livorno, yes. And then after there was this lieutenant colonel from the Italian Guardia di Finanza who gave me a lift back to Rome because he was there in this meeting. So, we start chatting about things. He's a guy who was involved with the Italian. It's a little bit like the finance police, a mix between the IRS and the military, because that's the kind of training they have. And we discussed about pedophilia and the discussion, when you drive in a car along, suddenly we discussed about pedophilia rings, and he said, listen, Leo, arrived to a certain level, we cannot touch them.
Wow.
And that's it. And I was like, okay, whatever. I mean, fine.
I guess no one has the balls to do that, but and maybe those that do, find out the hard way not to do that, and that's why no one else does.
He said that often also these rings somehow ended up in the Vatican, ended up with Vatican connections, and that was even more untouchable and made everything even more untouchable.
Dang.
So, when you see also the blessing in a private audience, which I have included also in my book, of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell by a pope who is now a saint.
Bless them, yeah. Oh my God.
It makes you really understand that this world is pretty screwed up place.
Starts to make it all come together. Wow.
Now, that in one of our latest articles, I talked about that really weird dentistry room in Little St. James that they tried to cover up as being, Jeffrey Epstein built this room for one of the girls who was studying dentistry. Yeah, sure. But does that mean you have to have the most creepy masks hanging from the walls of Adolf Hitler?
Crazy. Yeah.
I mean, and it said that maybe this room was also used for abortions, by the way, not only for the dentist.
Oh my God.
So it's like dentistry can be, and that from being in the field, a very interesting and very evil form of torture, because if I get your dentist to torture you, you're going to give up any secrets possible and imaginable, like in the movie Marathon Man, which
right there, yeah. Went into his nerve. Oh my God.
I think it's the worst form of torture possible.
I can't imagine.
I mean,
yes, I through some training for torture, but there's no way I can't imagine
I could say that maybe the worst torture than that would be if I don't know. I mean, if I go with an iron on your balls, you know.
Yeah, I know, right? So, yeah, that would be pretty tough.
That would be pretty tough. I think this is
cutting one of them off or something. It's like, yeah, that would be over the top. But yeah, that's definitely you know, unbelievable.
No, and it is unbelievable. And
this is the room.
The room.
With these creepy masks. That's what the heck.
And it's like I was earlier on my show saying I find it really weird to believe that Alex seems to seems to think that this is a hoax by the Democratic Party. I mean, hoax of what? What is the hoax here, guys? Yeah, I know.
Is he misdirecting? Probably, you know, maybe he's got some people that are puppeting him.
Yeah, I mean, of course, everybody wants, you know, to go with a narrative that fits their own agenda.
Yeah.
But here, guys, as truth seekers, as truth tellers, we have to be completely honest.
Just truth. Period. Truth.
That's it.
That's it.
The truth at times might hurt you, and I'm sure that in 2025 probably will be known as the year of the great disappointments.
Yeah.
Heading towards a year 2026 that will probably a turning point towards the worst, with the advancement of robotics to a level which Europol, in a report, has said that they are preparing for riots in Europe. So when they are already preparing for the next stage, when the workload is passed on to the robots, the people are given the universal basic income, but those people will become majorly unsatisfied, and then they will go in the street and riot, and they will not find any police. They will find Robocops there.
Oh, yeah. that they won't be able to get through them.
No.
Yeah, watch the movie RoboCop. That's whoa. But you know, I think I just saw this one video where this woman was saying that all of the stars and, you know, music industry, they're all leaning down like ridiculously. I mean, very, very lean, to the point where it's like it looks, you know, unhealthy. And that's part of, and her idea was that they're preparing the population to be able to handle starvation. I'm like, wow, because, you know, they're influencers, Hollywood.
Well, let's not forget that not only they are influencers, but Hollywood is also hardly hit by the AI development that is really gonna influence a lot. There is a creative takeover. I mean, there has been people now in the guild that creates, for example, the cartoons for Disney that is investing over $1 billion on OpenAI and all stuff, that they are, you know, pointing out the fact that OpenAI, just as any other form of artificial intelligence, takes from what was done creatively by human people, but then doesn't recognize necessarily what these people have done when they develop the ultimate product. So you are going to have a lot of new products generated by the AI, but you're going to have those guys who originally were the content creators, if you want to call them this way, never recognized and never paid for that. So it is a moment in which, like you stated just a moment ago, they are bowing down, but because of necessity, they will be probably inclined to do anything that pay their bills soon. Because in 10 years from now, Hollywood will be probably fueled by AI-generated actors.
Exactly. They're all going to be gone, just AI. And maybe that's part of what they're doing too, to get you used to like these plastic-looking people that are, you know, don't seem real anymore.
Yeah, well, definitely it doesn't make sense to use plastic-looking people, especially in medieval movies based on medieval times, or times in which, of course, there was no plastic surgery, so it makes it ridiculous. You know, when I see a Netflix series where everybody is kind of injected to the extreme of looking ridiculous, it doesn't make any sense because it doesn't respect the historical context, you know. But having said that, I think
you've been talking about this for quite some time, all the way back to. I was just looking through the books. I turned
Volume 8, for example, Volume 7. Yeah, Volume 8. Yeah, Volume 8.
You're even talking about it. Confession of the Illuminati Volume, not 666, but Occult Roots of the Great Reset. Nope, you're right.
In Volume 8, I focus, let's say, on how Hollywood is being taken over by the AI and how the directives came directly from Davos and from the Great Reset. So it's part of that agenda, because we have to never forget that all these producers, all these big investors in the Hollywood are every year to be met in Davos. In what you are showing now, Volume 9, which is part of this trilogy of the Cyber Satan, which is Volume 6.66, Volume 7, Volume 9, I also show how Ukraine is an experiment for the rest of Europe, possibly even the rest of the world.
Wow.
What is happening there by also they are forcing a merger of your ID, your bank card, your passport in one, all in the name of security and of necessity out of a war that is impending. And of course, it creates that, it facilitates that pact with the devil, if you want to call it, that diabolical Faustinian pact. So
now, this one was probably one of the most enlightening for me, because I had many questions after having served in the Middle East, in the SEAL teams and in the CIA. I was like, what is going on here? For a lot, every place seemed to be different. And I spent some time in Beirut, where we can talk about this in a second, where
the Pope was.
And Beirut was like a complete dichotomy. You could see the Christian side, which was, I believe, the most beautiful church bells. I was there during Christmas, the Christmas lights, best I've ever seen anywhere in the world. And then if it was right next to a Muslim area, the Muslim community looked like total, excuse my French, but shit town. But, and right next to where this Muslim, extreme poverty town was, if there was a mosque, it was burned and there was no one there anymore. For like a cathedral, gone, burned, no one there anymore. So they were slowly encroaching, taking over all of, and I think you mentioned it in one of your articles, how it's down to 30% Christian now. At one time, it was like over 50%. When I was there, it was probably 50%, but that was about a decade ago. So crazy.
No, it's important that the Pope, went recently to the Middle East. He first included Turkey, of course, in his journey. Turkey, you have to understand, Turkey is the most modern country in the Islamic world. Yep. It was modernized, though, by the young Turks when they fomented then the rise of what will become Ataturk. Ataturk was a guy who took over the role that was of the Sultan and the Ottoman Empire that kind of crumbled. But it was also because Western Freemasonry, France, but especially England, wanted the Ottoman Empire to collapse. And from that collapse, unfortunately, comes all the problems in the Middle East, because the Ottoman Empire was most of the Middle East. And so today, everything that we suffer in regards to any place in the Middle East is because, Egypt was part of the Ottoman Empire, Syria, everywhere, Jordan, all those countries didn't exist. They existed after, and they were almost an artificial construct, like I explain in my book that you read, Volume 10, of British or French Freemasonry, who also, they kind of divided their spheres of influence in the Middle East. And then we had also some element of the Germans also that comes in. But it was also connected to the Dogme, the Sabbateans, these heretical Jews that had become Muslims in 1666 with Shabbatai Zevi, which I discuss also in my book, because the Sabbatean Frankist, the most powerful Jewish, originates from the Ottoman Empire and then moves into the more Eastern European setup, where then we find, of course, the ancestors of both Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and all those people, like, for example, Woody Allen, or the other people that we find hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein, Dershowitz, who is no saint for sure, who even tried, like I explained in my book, when he was interviewed last summer, to justify, no, the girls were only 16, or they were only... There is really... they always love to try to justify themselves when pedophilia cannot be justified in any way, shape, or form. That's about it. However, in the Middle East, as you know, as well as in the Far East, there is a tendency at times to get these girls to marry very, very young. And now we unfortunately have already in countries like Great Britain, because the Sharia is arriving together with this massive Islamic presence, we have the acceptance of young girls' marriages with the younger, even here in America. It's pretty shocking. You know, you saw it yourself in countries like Afghanistan or whatnot. I mean, or Iraq or other countries.
13, 14 years old. Yeah. And the girls wanted it. For most of them, they wanted to get away from their families, and that was the way they were going to get their freedom, or at least that's what they thought. But didn't. Yeah,
but then it becomes, I heard the stories. I remember I had a friend many years ago in England who was the girlfriend of a very dear friend of mine, who escaped from one of these situations in the Middle East. Married forcefully into a marriage she didn't want. And it was a shocking story of survival, really. Now, you showed the image of the mausoleum of Ataturk. It's very important that people understand what the Pope was doing there, because the Pope, the first thing he did was to homage Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. Now, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk is no saint. He wasn't actually even a Muslim, to tell you the truth, because he was a Domme. He was actually himself a crypto-Jewish part of this. That's one of the accusations that often resurface even in the Turkish media. But Ataturk is an untouchable figure in Turkey. You can't criticize Ataturk. You will be arrested. Still to this day, you will be arrested. Now, Ataturk took over the power of Turkey in a very simple way. He invited the most powerful imams in Turkey on the Orient Express, beautiful train, that arrived in Istanbul, famous train. He put them all there. He bring 200 prostitutes, and then he blackmailed them for the rest of their career. So, I mean, that was the very pragmatic way that Ataturk saw the use of religion. Ataturk was a Freemason. He had been initiated in Thessaloniki. I explained that in this article. So why does a pope go and pay homage to a Freemason, the first thing he does when he arrives in a Muslim country? Makes absolutely no sense. Now, the only other country that has a significant Masonic presence to this day is Lebanon. So he goes from Turkey, who has a very significant Masonic presence, from Turkey to Lebanon, from a Turkey which has both forms of traditional Freemasonry connected to the United Lodge of England, as well as more progressive Freemason with the Turkish Liberal Grand Lodge, which is connected to the Grand Orient of France. But in Lebanon...
I was actually in Turkey about a year and a half ago.
I used to have a house in Turkey.
Oh, my God. Awesome.
I used to have
There's so much history there. I loved it. I loved the food, loved the people. They were very nice. They're very secular. They're not, extreme Muslim, which I'm not.
No, they're not extreme. No, honestly, yes. But I had this at the time, because my first marriage was with a Turkish woman. So I was there and near Alanya, Antalya, those areas. I had this villa back in the days, but the thing, there you are talking about rather close to the Syrian border, because it's like 200 kilometers, I think, from the Syrian border, I guess, at that point. But there is an underlying belly of more radical Islamic thought, and there is also a camouflage moderate Muslim thought. It might present, it might present to you, they present themselves like moderate, but in reality they are not.
I could see that, because I see what was left of Christian churches, and there weren't very many. Constantinople, it was like, the capital of Christianity at one time, I think. And so all the Christian churches were walled up. They had guards, and you could tell they didn't get out of line, because the Muslims would have probably burned them down, which again, I saw some burn down churches and cathedrals.
Well, the thing that shocked a lot of people was that the Pope didn't really go and visit what is defined as the most important center back in the days. You have, of course, the Blue Mosque, but you have the Hagia Sophia. The Hagia Sophia, and that is
they've given it back now. That's great.
The unique blend of Christian Islamic histories giving it back is actually nowadays being used more as a mosque than it's gonna ever be as a church.
Right across from it is a huge mosque. But as far as they let you go in and visit it, and they've
but that's
some of the plaster off the angels and Christian motifs on the walls.
Let's say that it was the intent of Ataturk to secularize this whole building, to have a more kind of a museum approach. But now with Erdogan, you have a return to a more religious approach. So that's what I'm saying. They might look moderate, but there is an underlying belly of fundamentalists that is creeping back in, as they would like to be the new Ottoman Empire, so to speak. Because
they're supporting Hamas.
They support Hamas. They support, of course, that is pretty clear. There, they are very anti-Israel, and they are very much. But then you have the photo that you are showing, which is in Lebanon. Is actually the crazy thing is that the Pope passed basically in front of the headquarters of Hezbollah. Hezbollah is Shia. Now, the majority of Muslims in Turkey is Sunni, while instead in Lebanon is Shia. But also in Lebanon, you have a presence of Freemasons, and of Freemasons of all the obediences and of all the traditions. Even Italian lodges were established in Lebanon, because, as you know, there was a presence also of the Italian soldiers, as well as so it is a country which really tolerates Freemasonry, which at the moment is not tolerated in any other Middle Eastern country. In Egypt, officially Freemasonry is not tolerated. Or you go to, you have, of course, Freemasonry in Jordan, because you have even the king of Freemasons. But officially, even the in Morocco, I guess you have Freemasonry, which is a little bit more but the Middle East is built, like I explained in volume 10 of my Confessions, on a belief that Freemasonry is inherently Zionist and connected to Israel, and so for that reason is always being persecuted. Now, how true is that accusation? We could discuss it and debate it. But the Pope that goes there and, of course, is passing in front of the headquarters of Hezbollah means simply one thing, that this whole fundamentalist lot of people, being either Hamas or Hezbollah, so being either Sunni or Shia, they are all in bed with the Pope for the one world religion, because that is really what Pope Francis started and what they are continuing to promote and what he's trying to promote here. So another interesting information that I can give you instead regarding the Pope, and this is a very interesting information that I can maybe pass on the screen. We can maybe show it to your audience. Let me share it from my side. Is this here. Chef in homosexual marriage to oversee new restaurant at Castel Gandolfo. Now, we know that the Pope...
we can't get the sex trafficking, but we can get the headline for homosexual marriage.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we know that, for example, the Pope is passing more and more time in Castel Gandolfo. Now, Castel Gandolfo is a bit outside of Rome. It's usually the summer residence, but for some reason, Pope Francis never used it. Ratzinger was temporarily isolated there when he gave up his papacy. Castel Gandolfo, which some people refer to as Gandolf Castle, is the place surrounded by the Satanists. It's there, which I describe also in articles you can find on my site. It's been historically connected to Satanism because it also has an ancient history, the whole area there. Now, Art Smith, a celebrity chef, longtime LGBT activist, will help run the restaurant currently being built on the grounds of the Pope's retreat. So he has a nice restaurant with a homosexual chef. And that's how it is, guys.
Well, at least he's not like Obama's chef and dies in 3 feet of water.
Well, yeah, that definitely was a very strange thing that happened. But I mean, I would say that every president is compromising one way or another. So Obama, then anybody that touches on the presidency in a way, even Marilyn Monroe ended up in the way she ended.
Sure.
So I mean, today we are in front of a situation in which a lot of interest is given to Trump and the Epstein files. But let's not forget that maybe too much interest is given to Trump in regards to the Epstein files, because the Epstein files are much more than Trump only. And that is really what maybe should be discussed. I never saw one single journalist ever explaining why the Pope, John Paul II, the future saint, gave audience to Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell. Nobody. There is a photo that, but nobody gives an explanation. I gave the only explanation in this book, but I tend to think that the media is so controlled these days that they don't even question things that could lead us, to maybe some interesting answers. But that's not really what the media want to do these days, because they are simply parrots to whatever is the agenda that is promoted by their owners of this. The media controlled in every aspect. That's why also we have the whole controversy surrounding IPAC or the financing of the Congress. If that, though, becomes an issue, you will see, like, people probably like Newsom will refuse to be financed, because then that will make him more credible. Who knows, The problem here is, Michael, we are facing, in a year from now, a radical transformation of the Republican Party. And I tell you, that is going to be shocking for most people, but in 1 year from now, it's going to become all more clear. The midterm elections are going to become that turning point. It's going to become that turning point, and it's not going to be for the best for the Republican Party, I think. And at that point, a lot of people that were supporting Trump all the way will, of course, have to think for their own political future and political benefit and maybe, rediscuss the future of the Republican presidency, Republican Party, and of course the future presidency, because we have to understand that I don't see J.D. Vance as being a credible and suitable candidate. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. So I think everybody's pretty much on the same music.
But the alternative, I don't know what's going to be.
So we.
Yep.
You know, then of course, regarding Europe and any American involvement, well, I think there is a lot of talk from of course Trump and of course his administration in support of certain populist parties that can oppose the left, but it's talk, because then now they are talking about this leaked secret plan to break EU nations away from Brussels' grip. Brussels was created by the American intelligence after the Second World War and the Jesuits. They took the French-German acts. I mean, I explained that in Volume 12 of my Confessions. As you have read it, you know that I explained exactly what happened. They were basically planning, even before the fall of the Nazis, they were already planning for the future of Europe,
right,
that France and Germany will be the leading nations of a future unified Europe. And eventually, initially was a community. There was the Treaty of Rome that was signed, in fact, in Rome. And then that led eventually to what we know today as the European Union. But the European Union, then it was also possible thanks to the Bilderberg Club. That also was helped in constructing the Bilderberg Club. But there was also a massive help by the US intelligence. So the fact that Trump will move against Brussels is laughable, because it's us Americans who have created Brussels and the European Union.
Yeah. So the European Union is probably going to fall apart, and NATO is on its death legs, I think. But they're still pushing for war, and I don't
know if it's going to fall apart, because if we have a military industrial complex here that keeps on selling weapons to them, it doesn't have any interest in getting them to fall apart. Why? Falling apart would mean coming under the control of China or Russia, and they would be the ones selling them their defense weapons.
Good point.
So I think that there is a lot of talk, a lot of points that are made out of the necessity of propaganda. The Trump administration wants to show, that the national security strategy is towards, defending the traditional Europe. But guys, let me be very sincere, on a personal point of view here. I had to flee Europe in 2019. I asked, after Trump was elected, the help of the American ambassador in Rome, and no help was ever received. I asked them for help after I was the victim of that persecution, political, or freedom of speech that they claim to be defending. I was the president of Italians for Trump, guys. I got here in America in 2019 during the first Trump presidency, also with the help of the Republican Party. I managed to get the right lawyers to finally get my green card, and now I'm an American citizen. So I don't understand here. What is the problem? Why, Leo? When I saw that this is a charade, when I saw the documents that I finally are in my hands, where I saw Italian generals of the Carabinieri trying to hunt me down through the DOJ here in America. Of course, the DOJ didn't give any permission. But the European police, the Schengen police, through what is known as Sirene, which is an authority that works for the whole of Schengen area, is after me since 2020. So
it's telling too many truths. They don't like it.
They don't like it. Absolutely. They don't like it. They don't like it because, it's not like small people moving against you. These are big people. When you have a general, moving to try to...
Well, you have very big following in Europe.
Well, I still have a following.
Royalty behind you. It's like that's one of the reasons probably why
I have following in various. I mean, let's say that I still have, friends and following in Italy, but also friends and supporters in other parts of Europe.
Nice.
But people need to understand here that there is not really any intention to wage war against these technocrats, because if America wanted to wage war against these technocrats, they have the means to do it, and they're not doing it. So Europe is.
What do you think about this, Leo? This came out today. Belarus frees opposition figures as U.S. lifts some sanctions. So it sounds like they're moving in the direction of, normalizing relations with the U.S. is normalizing relations.
But because Belarus is basically Vladimir Putin, and so Putin is trying to normalize relations with America. We heard it recently. I mean, it's been quite outspoken about the fact that he wants to normalize relations with America, even if Europe is completely contrary to that. So the thing is, I mean, I understand that publicly Trump is saying certain things regarding Europe. Okay, let's see if what he says then becomes facts. Mm-hmm. Because here we are really talking about a lot of speculation. But when you say that you are endorsing Giorgia Meloni in Italy, Giorgia Meloni is a fake conservative. Is a fake conservative who at the moment is carrying on her country, monitored by the president, who is by tradition always a leftist, connected to the what we call the Masso Mafia, which is the Freemasons that connect and control the mafias, Ndrangheta, Cosa Nostra, Camorra. I'm talking about all the various mafias. So the country of Italy is completely corrupt.
It's almost like Venezuela.
Yeah,
Trump's going after Venezuela because it's cartel. So,
but that is also another thing. The Venezuela, Venezuela at the moment doesn't. I mean, let's see if these nukes are real. We know there is already a high level general of the Russian military in place in Venezuela for the last few weeks. We know that there is at least a couple of hundred Russian elite soldiers ready to train the Venezuelan armed forces there. So these are facts that are already proven. In regards to the drugs, it's an excuse. It's the oil. It's not the drugs. Let's be very honest about it. It's the oil. Of course, we had the whole Trenerague and the whole thing about, pushing these gangs that really entered the US and created a lot of damage. But do you think that Trenerague and the others gangs were not in contact with the CIA or had some kind of, way of, I mean, if I enter with 10 people and machine guns in a building in Aurora, in Denver, I would be arrested. These people were untouchable. Who made them untouchable?
Yeah.
And so there is
the corrupt governments. I think Colorado is completely corrupt, and that's going to be changed. But
of course, some people are saying Venezuela elections were hijacked. Venezuela is a banana republic, just like in the typical tradition of South and Central America. And of course, the Maduro is a dictator and is a fraud. And I have no sympathy for Maduro. That's for sure.
Maybe that Russian general and all those elite troops there to escort Maduro back to Russia, and they're going to get the $50 million reward.
Well, I'm sure that he might end up then like al-Assad from Syria, who is playing video games all day in a nice setup in Russia. But it's more complex with Venezuela, because we have seen the intervention of Pope Leo. Pope Leo has intervened directly, criticizing any intervention the United States in Venezuela. That has not happened, to my knowledge, for Syria. And so Pope Leo intervening directly into the discussion. Pope Leo means the Jesuits. The Jesuits are the ones who control South and Central America.
Yep.
And
you have Zelensky and the Pope.
Zelensky went to visit the Pope in Castel Gandolfo. Probably there was the gay
probably had the gay
chef preparing some nice stuff for him. But in any case, Zelensky went to Rome, and that was also another big disappointment. And plus, once again, seeing this charade, Zelensky going there to Giorgia Meloni. Giorgia Meloni say, and Zelensky, I trust that everything will be fine, because it's like Zelensky went to the Pope, guys. Zelensky is waging war against Russia on behalf of the Pope. Now, this might seem shocking for a lot of people, but if you read volume 9 of my Confessions and read the whole history of Ukraine, that is not so shocking, because Ukraine has been artificially constructed as being a national identity since the 1850s initially by secret societies affiliated with Freemasonry, the Illuminati, Germany, Poland, to create this artificial identity of a country who in reality was part of Russia and was Russia. But you see, the interest that other countries had against Russia forged and created this identity, and then it became eventually a country after the fall of the Soviet Union, because in the meantime, during the Soviet Union, the Ukrainians were recognized because, of course, of the influential Ukrainians within the Soviet Union. But having said that, the Ukrainians were always part of Russia. It was simply historically part of Russian history. Now,
I just want to show this. Zelensky has a $1 million villa in Italy, so Tuscany. So
no, but I would like to show you something even better than that, if you want. Okay, no, because then people always say, but Trump here, Trump there, Trump everywhere. He promised us the end of this war in 24 hours. Now, after a few months, this is the toilet, the golden toilet that the principal collaborator of Zelensky built for himself. I wish I had one. It looks very nice.
Saddam's palace had a bunch of that, had golden toilets and sinks and stuff. Yeah,
I mean, it's incredible.
I actually got to sit on one. It's like a regular toilet. It's no big deal.
No, but sitting, okay, but I mean, it can be kept. I think that it can be kept clean and everything very easily. I mean, it's gold, so it's very easy to.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, in any case,
maybe it kills bacteria better. Who knows?
Yeah. Let me tell you, this toilet was built with mine and your money. With the money that we pay in excess when we go to the gas pump, when we go to the supermarket, when we pay taxes.
Absolutely. That's what's frustrating about it. Totally.
Trump promised America first, and America has not been put first. Because, guys, I'm fed up of giving money for other countries. We could stop this war in Ukraine in 24 hours. And it's always the same thing. Trump issues the thing, and then it gives then the Europeans and Ukraine don't agree.
I think the Europeans NATO keeps interfering with the
Of course.
That's a problem. Because Russia, I mean, Trump met with Putin in Alaska. I think they had a really good plan, and the Europeans keep getting in the way. They keep saying, just blow that off. We'll support you. We'll give you money and weapons and so forth.
Like we said, who created the Ukrainian identity? The Germans, the Polish. Like I explained in my book here, orders like the Order of San Stanislao, these are order of knighthoods that go back hundreds of years, very influential in Ukraine and Poland, and Catholic order, a Catholic order that goes back to the Vatican. Only a month ago, the Vatican celebrated a special mass for the Ukrainian forces with the Secretary of State of the Vatican, Parolin. they are waging war because it's about expanding the power of the Church of Rome instead of the power of the Orthodox Church, which was very influential up until the beginning of the hostilities. They were persecuted. The Orthodox churches were persecuted that were not under the Ukrainian approved, sanctioned, patriarch, whoever that is. It's always about the control of also the religion. This is also a religious war. It's not only, So Zelensky goes to the Pope.
Involved,
Yeah, and so Zelensky, how many times did Zelensky go to the Pope? Zelensky has already gone to the Pope in the summer. Has gone to the Pope other times. I mean, maybe I don't know how many times. I should count how many times Zelensky went to the Pope. But the amount of times that Zelensky goes to the Pope demonstrates he's there taking his marching orders from the Pope. And it's a Pope that is in no way friendly to Donald J. Trump, because, of course, it's the Jesuits behind Leo XIV. It was the Jesuit Pope who, since 2023, prepared this gentleman to become Pope. And who is the only guy who told us the name of this Pope before he was elected? Question, Michael. The only American journalist / MAGA influencer who said the name? Steve Bannon.
Wow.
And we go back to Epstein and we go back to the whole show.
Yep.
So it's like,
I think that if Russia, and I think that's their intent, I think they will actually take Odessa, the port, because Europe does not want Odessa taken. They've even said
the difficulty
there. But if they take Odessa, that's the end for Ukraine. Then Europe has to.
But I tell you why they're not going to take it.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. And I explain a little bit about in volume 9. Odessa is the headquarters of the Grand Master of Ukrainian Freemasonry. He and the rest of the Ukrainian Freemasons are very influential. They have already had hostilities with Russian Freemasonry about it and stuff. But I don't think that in the end the Russians want to go into Odessa, because it's about, when it's Freemasonry and we're talking about, it's another situation that prevails.
Yeah.
So they could have taken Odessa if they wanted. I think up until now they had many opportunities. They bombed Odessa in various moments, and it is historically
over the last couple of days. I've been bombing Odessa quite severely. The people of Odessa are like, the press gangs that are forcing people. They're attacking press gangs. It's I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of a push going in a certain direction there. It sounds like.
Well, the push is that basically the war that is manifesting here, it's a war that is going to expand into the rest of Europe.
Yeah,
inevitably.
Another world war. You think there's going to be another world war?
Well, then it depends from who we have in power on this side of the world, and if that person wants to engage, and we. As people maybe need to remember that history tends to repeat itself. Initially, we were not directly involved in the Second World War. It took some time to get directly involved. And so not necessarily we might directly be involved from the beginning of the hostilities. But Europe will become that battlefield that might be required by the New World Order in order to then implement the next stage, which will be a much closer one-world government scenario.
Yeah. Now, remember when we did that roundtable with Ole Demigard and Juan O'Savin? So Juan O'Savin says it's all about England. England basically still controls us economically here in the United States. What are your thoughts on that?
England is very much historically waging war with Russia for over 150 years. I mean, they've been at it for a long time. They're the ones who have been pushing NATO to get involved with this hideous war from the very beginning. I tell you, I know that from people within the English armies. I mean, I know it directly. They were training the Ukrainians. They were behind the coup. They were there from the very start. Just the other day, there was actually a British soldier that was killed in Ukraine, and there has been at least 20 UK soldiers that have been killed.
Oh yeah,
you know,
Portuguese too. I guess there was a group of Portuguese in one of the cities, and they just.
But historically, let's say that the English have been fighting the Russians for a very even before they were. Even before they were the Soviet Union, so even when they were the Russian Empire, even if the Tsars were related to the Queen Victoria, there was a relation, but there's always been jealousies and things going on, and so yes, the war has been always there between these two factions. In reality, if you ask me today. Who is really the driving force behind Europe? I will tell you England, but the connection with America, well, it should have been severed in 1776. But there is, of course, some remains of it that might be visible at times. Having said that, we officially severed this in 1770. So there is people who tend to bring back the fact that in reality we still bow down to the British imperialism and to the monarchy in some way. When Donald Trump went to King Charles, it didn't really serve the purpose of being contrary to that viewpoint, because I mean, we saw once again the President of America going there, the King, the whole show, blah blah blah. We have also
walking in front of the, both times he was there, walking in front of the Queen and walking in front of the King, and we discussed before this, going all the way back to Edward III, who started the
Order of the Garter,
and then the Knights Templar after that, and so. But Donald Trump is a Knight Templar. He has, on his mother's side, he is a Scottish heritage, which basically traces all the way back to Edward III. So Edward III started the 100-Year War, and maybe that's why he walks in front of him, because he's like he's a real deal, and they basically usurp.
Well, okay, talking about the Order of the Garter, lately we had Prince Andrew, who was kicked out of the Order of the Garter just a couple weeks ago.
Here.
That was one, the remaining royal titles that were left to him.
Because of the Epstein connection.
Because always of the Epstein connection. The
figurehead, they tried to deflect. It's like, it's just him. It's just him.
But there is one thing that very few people know. When you join British Freemasonry, like I did back in the days when I was initiated in the United Lodge of England, there is a specific passage in the ritual that says that this initiation is more than the most noble order of the Garter will ever offer you.
Wow.
So there is a specific passage that makes you understand that the Freemasons, which of course then in this side of the world are very influential as well as everywhere else, have a special connection. The Red Cross definitely, like, you indicate present in the Order of the Garter, is also the Red Cross of the Knights Templar. So there is definitely that, after the Knights Templars were, it was 1348 when the Order of the Garter came into power. So the Knights Templar had been dismantled officially. Some remains of the Knights Templar had moved to Scotland for protection. Right. And actually, they also inspired the birth there of another important order. But then at that point, King Edward of England felt he will take on this cross, also connecting it, of course, dedicating it to Saint George, which itself is a very important and venerated saint for England.
Yeah. Wow. And you're potentially connected to Trump as well.
No, I mean, yes, my bloodline in Scotland. Yes, we have a common ancestor with Donald J. Trump, because he has this link.
You gotta get you guys meeting.
We have this link. But I think that the problem is that we are assisting, unfortunately, to, when I favor only the elite, but the elite based on the interest this elite can manifest, and rather than the people who voted you. I have some problems with that, because I have more of a Robin Hood also element in my bloodline.
No doubt about it.
which I see myself more in, defending the people's interests rather than Peter Thiel, or rather than some other,
me too,
Elon Musk or whatever, or the Saudi prince that comes there and I put him a red carpet. Now, like I explained in my book, the latest book dedicated to Jeffrey Epstein, that then there is this whole connection within the Sabbatean Frankists and the British nobility, the British royalty, that saw also the nobilization of the Rothschild family, the fact that they started to mix with the nobles, royalty.
And they established Israel, and
they established Israel thanks to that.
Star and all that stuff. Yeah, it's
they
never
established
Israel, part of Israel.
They established Israel, and Israel became a manifestation of that idea that they had in England, in the Puritan circles, about bringing first the Jews back to England, where they had been kicked out, and then back to Israel for the manifestation of the end times. It seems that the plan went well. So now what we're going to see next? I mean, what is the next step that they're going to undertake? Rebuilding the Third Temple? Is it going to be about manifesting the Antichrist as well as the Messiah? It is this really that we have to think about. The cyber Satan, AI, robotic reality, aiding a force that we were warned would be the force of the mark of the beast. And so it is important that we understand that everybody, like Trump, trying to do good things initially, but then of course finding itself in the hands of these people that are definitely in charge of Washington DC. This drainage of the swamp has been I mean, have you noticed that Trump has not discussed the drainage of the swamp for the last few months? It's not been a mention. So why is that? I mean, why is he not interested in draining the swamp? Because that is what we should be. And then at the same time, though, we have another interesting element that today I want to bring you out in the last minutes of our show. You remember I talked about in 1991, Les Wexner had created this Jewish study group, this mega group. I don't know, we discussed it in the past, when I discussed my book. Now, one of the members was Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg, who is now going to be bringing out a new movie that is kind of being placed as a turning point for the revelation of the alien reality. They even claim, some sources, that maybe he might have access directly himself to UFOs in the making of this movie. But Steven Spielberg is also part of this whole clique of people. And then, of course, we have a lot of talk these days about this comet that is passing and everything else connected to it, either as a way of bringing more disinformation to the fold, or either or something really revelatory that is going to happen. So I think that the UFO phenomena thing, which there's been a lot of talk about, it's still unfolding and has still some kind of moment that might manifest more in 2026. So what is your idea, Mike?
So yeah, it's a possibility. Very, very strong. I think it's going to manifest.
It seems like they are, pointing towards letting us. I mean, Trump understands that he needs to do something dramatic to make us come out of this negative loop of sorts. Maybe that could be a possibility to bring him, to bring his legacy to an historical. I mean, he has how many years left? He needs to leave his legacy. I mean, for me, if I was president now, the most important thing would be my legacy. When I'm in the second mandate, I don't have any more future in politics, and I will be retiring as a private citizen after 2028. So I think that could be a point that maybe Trump would like to touch in a way. So that might be, but at the same time, we're going to see how the UFO disclosure is going to also affect how the AI is threatening democracy, how the AI is manifesting, because as you know, I have always discussed since volume 7 and volume 9 also the topic of reverse engineering at the basis of the AI revolution that we have today as a product, the AI as a product of this AI revolution. And I think that we need to understand that today, if we are living immersed by this digital prison, is because of that. I have said it in the past, and I'm never gonna. So the fact that today we are living an erosion of the democratic trust and accountability, that we are gonna be flooded by more and more AI and more robotics. How much of this artificial intelligence is already in our present politics? That is what I've been asking myself more and more in the last few weeks, when I see these politicians passing laws, passing this and that. But how many of them nowadays simply go on open AI or Grok, whatever it's called on X, Twitter, and then formalize, maybe my future law proposal with the AI.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Microsoft Pilot publicity
gets them a lot of insight these days.
Today, when we see the Microsoft Pilot publicity on TV, we are seeing and encouraging the humans to use not their brains, but to react with the AI in their hands and saying, okay, we're going to do this, and you're going to do that. So the politician is doing that. But then that means that the AI is taking over the politics. So the AI is running more and more things, and these politicians are going to become simply more and more puppets in the hands of this AI, until at one point, maybe the Americans are going to realize that they're spending a lot of money for a bunch of puppets. And at that point, that is going to be the moment in which they're probably going to simply say, okay, let's give our trust to a bunch of, pure council of technocrats, and that is going to become the ultimate dystopian reality of the future, where there's not going to be, 100 senators. It's going to be 10 senators.
I think we might get down to that, because the corruption is being exposed on a massive level with these politicians. Seems like all of them are insider trading. They come in with $100,000+ and they leave. And after 4 or 5 years, they have like 15, 25 million in their accounts. People are getting disgusted with it. I think they're
but in fact, what you're saying is very good because it fits in perfectly also with all this infighting between people of the same parties, or Trump against the Democrats, Democrats against Trump. Everybody is becoming disillusioned with politics that doesn't deliver really the change that we really want. Politics is becoming the disappointment.
Totally, yeah.
And so the future then becomes the future where we actually demand the AI to take over. We demand that autocratic element to take over. But at that point, the surveillance, privacy, authoritarian tendencies, which people like Peter Thiel and Palantir are already preparing for us, means that we are all controlled. I mean, in China, they are already working with the AI on a massive level, credit score system.
I believe China is winning the AI war, and they probably will win it, actually, unfortunately.
But what is winning the AI war, Michael? Because really,
winning, it's a good point. What is winning? Where you have more control, where you're using more AI.
If I become a dehumanized shell of a man in the hands of the AI, is that going to make my life better?
No.
It's we see, for example, where all this is heading, and it's heading in a direction in which the humans are definitely becoming. Now, let's be controversial for the last few minutes of the show. Nick Fuentes, the guy has never had sex and he's a 27-year-old male. He describes himself as an incel. What the heck is that? You have never had sex, 27 years old?
What kind of man are you?
No, but that is and he has millions of followers who are like him.
Millions, yeah. He has some good points. He's quite a conversationalist, but you have a good point. I mean, is that the future of
so is that the future of the younger generation?
It's not even like he's a human.
Okay, so we will have people like him who hate women, who basically live this reality. But then the children will be produced in a laboratory. You go and purchase them at the supermarket, and it becomes a society which is really something out of the worst sci-fi movie. And
it's already there, Leo, in a lot of different ways.
But
my daughter confided to me that she's given a bunch of her eggs. She went through a very high-speed program where they only select like 1% of the population, and so she was able to give all these eggs, and she got tons of money for it. And I was always wondering how she did so well, but she got so elite people would come in and buy those eggs because it would have her background. She has like my background, her mother's, and all that, So just it was pretty impressive. So people bought those eggs like crazy, so what? I'm like, I'm out there like hundreds of times now. So like, what the heck?
Well, there is also the fact that, for example, there's people who are selling the non-vaccinated sperm for a very high amount because the vaccine
also get a lot of money for that, because
of course,
compromise, yeah.
So that is pretty far out. But I mean, the new generations are becoming less and less social in reality. They are social in the virtual world, of course, but in the reality, they are becoming really isolated, and the pandemic has also served this purpose psychologically to completely disrupt the situation. And because the pandemic was artificially created to implement this massive psychological transformation on the youth.
And there's very few youth now that even want to have babies. It's very, very, I mean, I look at my family and other families around me. I put this out in shows, and a lot of people responded like, yeah, we have like hardly any, of course there's some families that are like very prolific, thankfully.
Well, the families are very prolific, especially are Muslim.
Yeah, good point.
And, I remember, and this can be the closing point I make today, Monsignor Mario Pieracci, this famous Italian media priest who was my mentor in the Catholic Church and so on, he confessed to me that the Catholic Church was calculating the amount of babies the Muslims had, and that's why they were pushing for a transformation that included Islam, because they said otherwise we would be losing our jobs and our churches were all closed down. Now, that was pretty shocking when he admitted that. It was pretty shocking for me, because he admitted something that I never thought possible. I mean, here we have a Catholic priest, and so, it's not only the Pope Leo with the Islamic dance, it's the Pope Leo knowing very well that he needs to embrace Islam, because Islam is the future of Europe, because they are the only ones who are making food in Europe.
There we go. You said it. That's it. And that's the way it is. And they're trying to do it here in America, and President Trump is trying to get them out. So we'll see how successful that is. Or maybe
that's not going to happen if you lay the red carpet to the prince of Saudi Arabia, because and Qatar also gives you a bunch of money. Guys, let's not forget, I mean, I explained it here in volume 10. Qatar has invested heavily on Newsmax out of all media. Wow. So
interesting.
That's, makes you understand that they are, I think that people have heard of Dearborn, Michigan, a place where the majority of Muslims voted in 2024 for Donald J. Trump. So,
good point. Yeah.
We have to be very realistic with these things, because otherwise we tend to maybe, I understand.
Overgeneralize. Yeah, we can't, because I've been to Muslim countries. Yeah, they have extreme Islamists there, and they really screw things up. But for the most part,
they have good people.
Muslims just like everybody else.
Absolutely, they have very good people,
just like everybody else. So
probably when it comes to the family,
religion is a problem.
Religion is the problem, but also, the families, the Islamic families, have a concept of family that at the moment seems to protect those traditions in a better way than we as Christians have done, because our Western society is fracturing, and these people instead are producing babies, like we just said. So for the end of this,
I said Christians weren't producing babies, and you said Muslims were producing. So we're both right. So very good point, and that's why they're pulling them into all these European countries and America.
In America, and it's expanding. Like I said in this book, is 6 million. Soon, in 10 years from now, it's going to be 12 million, and then you're going to have entire states of the United States of America in their hands, because the occupation is methodic. Then you have countries that are very rich in oil, like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, or whatnot, who finance the big mosques that open in the cities. And you cannot stop them, because oil is their gold, and we still have a necessity for that oil. So they seem to be pretty strong. For them, oil became from the very beginning that gift from God, from Allah, that will help them expanding. And it seems that's what's happening. So thank you so much for having me on your show. It was a great chat
today. Oh my God, good job. Thank you.
We end up at 2025 though with a positive thought. I hope that we can all spend our Christmas, this Christmas, in the best way possible. I hope all our viewers will have really their dear ones next to them, and that we can share this tradition, which is primarily a Christian tradition, all together.
Yes, beautiful. Well, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, Leo. Thank you very much.
Merry Christmas to you, to your wife, Tracy, and all the people who are following us, remembering that maybe 2026 is not going to be so nice on us. We can at least enjoy this 2025. And let's pray. Let's pray, because maybe the power of prayer is still...
It's still very, very valuable, yeah.
Very active, very possible with prayer to form and shape the reality, because our reality is shaped by our thoughts, and so our thoughts need to be positive. I know it's not been an easy year, also for you and for many of us, but we need to have a positive resolution for the new year, even in the face of all these adversities. And let's hope that even Trump realizes certain mistakes, and that, affordability is not a hoax. If I go into the shop or if I go to the gas pump and I continue to pay more for Zelensky's golden toilets. Take care. All the best, guys.
All the best.